New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. And good morning, dear ones. Reverend Robert with you here. And no, I am not Reverend Victoria Bomberry. Thank you, however, for tuning in anyway. Uh, we've had one of those wonderful little experiences here this morning. You know, this is a team. This is a small team of individuals that are doing the work of bringing this forward. And on occasion, some things go wrong in the technological world. So we are in communication with Reverend Victoria. She is working diligently to see if she can get her machine working on her side. And I'm here to say hello and get us started in our conversation today and share a little bit more about what will happen and when Reverend Victoria is able to get into the room with us. So Science of Mind and Spirit Saturday morning lecture series is a fabulous process and program. Last week we had the great distinction of hearing from our good friend Dr. Tracy Brown, and she was talking about the soul. Now I'm going to explain why she was talking about soul last week, and I'm talking about the body this week. But we'll do that in a moment or two. We want to say thank you again to Dr. Tracy for being with us next week. And if you're new with us, what we do is each week one of our various teachers and speakers and leaders comes forward to share with you a lesson from the Science of Mind and Spirit textbook. And we go through this chapter by chapter through the first half of the year. Middle of the year, we run out of chapters in the book. So we start to expand on some of the ideas and the principles and the practices that we live by. Throughout today's program, we do invite you to interact with us, leave a comment. If there's a question you have or something that maybe I say that doesn't quite jive, it makes you kind of go, huh? Don't be afraid to leave those comments in the comment box. And if you're watching this on a rebroadcast, then by all means, feel free to join in the conversation as well. We'll be happy to catch up with you throughout the week to make sure that you get the answers you're looking for. So, all right. Science of Mind and Spirit. We're going to open up to page 98. Now, if you have the regular book, great. We're in chapter 5, the body, pages 98 to 105. And really, there's a lot of big, heavy stuff at the very beginning of this chapter. And I want to read through a little bit of that with you so that we're on the same page. Yes, all puns are intended. The universe has been called the Great Triune, or the Great Trinity, unity of spirit, soul, and body. And that's why over the past couple of weeks, we dug into Dr. Holmes's expressions and definitions and pictures of how we look at all three of these: spirit, again, last week was soul with Dr. Tracy, and this week is the body. Now, he continues in the book by saying the entire manifestation of spirit, both visible and invisible, is the body of God. Body means the entire manifestation of spirit on all planes. So oftentimes what we know is happening in our lives is that we have these bodies, and that's just the physical aspect. There are the invisible aspects of form or the body as well. That's what Holmes is saying here. Body means the entire manifestation of spirit on all planes. I cannot see the plane that mind, the soul, goes to after the body dies. And yet, according to this, that would still be part of the one. Get it? Everything's part of the one. He continues, the word body, as used in the science of mind, means all objective manifestations of the invisible principle of life. And that's where I like to jump off on this topic. What is that invisible principle of life? Now, I believe, and what I know the science of mind teaches, is that invisible principle really has three parts. This is what we call the omnis: omnipresent, omnipotent, and I see. I never remember all the omnis. Here's how I remember: the power, the presence, and the intelligence. So I want to break those down a little bit too. If this one principle of life is power, presence, and intelligence, then all of those must be inherent within each one of us as well. We have the power to create and co-create with the divine through the power of our word and our beliefs and our prayers and our practices. We are a presence on the planet, and we are a presence beyond the planet. We're a presence beyond just the physical form. Our mental and emotional states bring forth part of our presencing as well. And then there is the intelligence of the divine, the oneness of the divine revealing itself through and as all of us, each one of us. We are all of these things at all times. This is the invisible principle of life. Now, Holmes continues on page 98, saying, body is always an effect, never a cause. Body expresses intelligence, its apparent intelligence being lent by the consciousness which permeates it. Now, I don't want to worry too much about the second half there, but let's worry about the first half. Body is always an effect and never a cause. In my prayer work, you will hear me say quite often that there is one self-existent cause that is forever taking on form and abandoning that form in order to take on new form. The cause is the divine. The cause is a belief, a thought that is a causative nature into the world, into the universe, if you will, into this vibrational, energetic environment we live in. The form is what happens with it, is what becomes of it, of that thought. Have you ever, and I'm sure you probably have, almost everybody's experienced this. You're walking around your house one day, you're doing some chores, maybe cleaning the kitchen, and you think to yourself, I really ought to call so and so. My brother, my sister, a friend, this person, someone in my history. Someone flashes in your mind and you say, I really ought to call that person. And then 10 minutes later, they call you. Now, is that just psychic connection? Perhaps. But I also think that there is that thought, I ought to call my friend, is a causative thought. It sets in motion what is necessary for the universe, for the divine, for the one, to provide the opportunities and resources for us to fulfill that desire, that thought, that idea. Now, whether I pick up the phone and call my brother or my friend, or whether they pick up the phone and call me, truly is irrelevant. We have set in motion a thought that in some way must take form. Which way it takes form doesn't really matter. And herein, for me, is the question of why, quote, bad things happen to good people. It's not that they're necessarily bad things, and it's not that people are attracting their thoughts, these things into their lives. It's not like I go out and say, oh, I want to go out today and get in a car accident, or I'm going to go out today and all the effects in our lives are things that are happening What I believe really matters is how we respond to those things when they happen in our lives. So when a form shows up, when an experience shows up, how do I respond to it? We're going to come back to that question in a moment or two as well. Now, further down on page 99, Holmes continues, the simplest way to think of body is to realize that it is an objective manifestation of a subjective mind and consciousness. And if we are to be well and happy, not only the body, but the mind must also be peaceful and harmonious. So this is just what I'm just talking about. An event happens in our lives. Let's say we're driving down the street, somebody cuts us off, or pulls out in front of us, or runs a stop sign. All of that is part of the objective manifestation of just what's going on. I didn't create it. I didn't attract it. It's just what's going on. What I get to do, however, is that I get to recognize that what I make up around me about that is part of my subjective mind and consciousness. So I have the ability to change my experience of this simply by changing the way I look at it, simply by changing my experience. This is Holmes's great change your thinking, change your life. So here I am in traffic, someone cuts me off, pulls out in front of me, runs a stop sign, whatever it may be. If I am living in a consciousness that no one around me knows how to drive, that everybody else on the road are idiots, if I'm living from a consciousness that it's not safe to be on the road because there's always somebody running a red light, well, I'm setting up the conditions that are necessary to get into an accident or for something to happen that I'm not intending. However, if I come to my same day with a consciousness of, I'm safe when I drive, I'm surrounded by good drivers, people pay attention to the laws and follow the laws, I'm setting up the conditions in my mind for those things to outpicture as the experience of my life. Are you following along? Are you with me? If you are, say yes in the chat box. Let us know in the chat box if you're with us here this morning and how this is how well I'm doing at last minute preparation. So it really, we have to come to that place of being peaceful and harmonious and seeing that as our basic nature. So what's happening in the Ukraine and Russia right now? There's a lot of people say there's a war going on. I think peace is breaking out. I think there is a fundamental change happening in the consciousness of the people of this planet. And the people of this planet, I'm going to stress that, not the governments and not the people of the planet are starting to say, no, no more of this. We do not need this experience any longer. Let's find peace. Let's work toward peace. Let's put together an avenue, if you will, towards peace. But that has to begin in our own mind. Also on page 99, if the body is to be permanently well, the soul must be in poise, the mind peaceful and happy. It may be considered as a general rule that when the soul is poised in true spiritual realization, the body will be normal and healthy. This is the purpose of mental healing. And therein is where we always find ourselves. Throughout all my study of the science of mind, we always come back to this idea of mental healing. Now, those two words together not only can carry a whole bunch of baggage, but can cause some confusion when put together that way. What is a mental healing? Recently, someone suggested to me that one form of healing is remembering. And it isn't and it's remembering, but there's two parts to the remembering. The first part is we remember the events or the experiences that happened in our lives or that we maybe believe happened to us. Recently, my wife was invited to a process of rewriting the story of her younger years, of her young life. And it wasn't a process of saying, let's make it up like it didn't happen, or let's pretend that what did happen is something totally different. She went back to remember what really happened, not the story she made up about what happened over the years. Now, we all do this. I'm sure you can look at somewhere where you know what happened, and we've interpreted that event, and we've interpreted and we've told it so many times, and we've somehow let some things maybe slip out of the story or slip into the story. When I was young, I was entrusted to, on a Thanksgiving day, to go down to the store and pick up some things for Thanksgiving dinner, and along the walk, lost the money that was necessary to purchase those items. Now, gratefully, the store owner, it was a small town in New Jersey. He knew us. He knew I'd be in the next day. He knew my mom would be in for gas the next, all that. He gave me the food. We took it all. Everything went fine for Thanksgiving dinner. But that experience led me to start creating stories about my life, stories about my ability to manage money, stories about money in itself, stories about my own ability and my own worth, stories that weren't true. Now, over the years and over time, I was able to uh, unpack those stories and go back and look at them from a place of remembering what really happened, and then putting aside everything that I made up and considered how it might have turned out differently, how it could have turned out differently. Now, we're not here to rewrite history, and I don't want you to do this for every event of your life. What I'm asking you to do is to reach back and remember the truth of who you are and the truth of what has brought you here to the planet this time. That's the soul. That's the spirit coming through, is what is the bigger picture, the higher calling for each of us. And when we stay there, when we start to remember our lives from a place of happiness, from a place of joy, from a place of perfection, now in the big picture of life, the few dollars that I lost that day uh, mean nothing. The goal, the joy, the greatness in that is the opportunity to again look at how things could be different. So ultimately, in our lives, everything's going to change. No matter what it is that I'm doing today, no matter what it was I was doing last week, we are agents of change. And um, in that change, I've Spirit just threw a little joke in my head from years ago. Uh, I remember being in a meeting and somebody says, I am the agent of change. And someone said, I'll take nickels and dimes and quarters, please. So we want to remember that the change we seek, I believe, is part of our opening to the divine flow, of opening to the soul, of opening to all the things we've been talking about so far in this book, so that the change can happen. And when it does, we don't make up stories about it. Okay, a show, one of our show hosts on the network here has decided to take their show somewhere else. Okay, that's an event. That's all it is. It doesn't mean anything until I make it mean something. And I have that choice to say, "Oh my God, this is terrible, and this is a bad sign," or "Okay, maybe I'm not happy about it, but it's what's going to be. It's what's happening. It's what is." In today's world, I see far too many people far too worried about what's going to happen now down the road, and not paying any attention to what is really happening right in front of them in the moment. Yes, it is important to consider how our actions and our beliefs and what we're doing in the world today will affect generations in the future, and how our healing affects generations in the past. However, We live in the moment. We are constantly and forever living in this now moment, and it could be no other way. So we are both the cause and the effect. My my physical body, the surroundings in my life, the books on my shelf, the candles and all the stuff around the world, all of that has just an effect, but we are both. So the place to start is to start with the cause. One self-existent cause. That is part of how I define the one. And I know a lot of people that help to define the one through those terms. One self-existent cause. Are we, as humans, do we influence that causative nature with thoughts and beliefs of lack and doubt and limitation, or of peace and love and joy? The choice is yours. And if you are that causative force of peace and love and joy in your own consciousness, I'm not saying you have to go out on the streets and bang a drum and march in the streets for peace and love and joy. If you want to, that's great. Go do it. Have fun. I might be right there next to you with you. It's not that we don't do those things. It's that all of our actions must be followed by the causative belief and the causative nature within of peace and love and joy and harmony. We are the cause, the pause, and the effect. Thank you, Fiona. Yes. I moved over to my other screen and I forgot to pay attention to our comments. Thank you, Fiona, for joining in. And Diego also, we are reality under construction. Yeah. We are constantly constructing something new. On page 101, there's a whole section in here that Holmes uses called cause and effect. Effect is that which did not make itself, but must have a power back of it, causing it to be. All manifestation, all body is effect and is subject to its cause. The creator is greater than the creation. Everything we touch, feel, taste, hear, or grasp within the physical senses is an effect. Things which are seen are not made of things which do appear. What we see comes from that which we do not see. So this is not a philosophy that says I can sit on my tuchus, on my meditation cushion and miraculously out of thin air meditate and demonstrate and manifest a gold brick in my hand. We are forever the both and. I sit on my meditation cushion and remind myself that I am abundant, that there is an unlimited prosperity available to everyone on this planet, and that I am no more or less than anyone else in my ability to accept and embody that abundance, that prosperity. That is what we are working for. But I have to get up off of that cushion and do the work that is necessary as well, of moving, of being the movement in the world. Holmes continues, if self-knowingness is in spirit, and in the law which executes the volition of spirit is entirely subconscious or subjective to the will of spirit, it follows that both cause and effect are spiritual. Recently, my wife and I made a purchase that was intended to be a bridge purchase and something that we could give to our eldest child as they are preparing to go off to college. Over the term of this purchase and the experience of it all, I haven't been very happy in a couple of places. And at one point, I voiced to my wife, I was not in a very great place. And I was like, I'm at a point I think we got ripped off. And she smiled and she looked at me. She said, I want you to remember the part of our philosophy that points to the fact that no matter what decisions we make, they are right. They are the perfect decisions for the moment. The effect might not be what we anticipated, might not be of what we expected, might not be what we wanted. And the decision was still perfect when we made it, and for the reasons that the decision was made. I know this can seem paradoxical because we're going to say, well, what about the guy that decided to shoot up the school? Or what about the guy that decided to shoot up this or that? It's not that the outcome of the decision was perfect for everyone. It is that the process of making the decision moves that person in a way that is perfect for their evolution. It can get kind of mucky because the person whose decision is to pick up the gun and go shooting, that belief system leads to an effect that oftentimes leads to either, well, the soul returning to another plane or letting go of this body, or rehabilitation of someone's thought process. And oftentimes, if people can get the help they need to change their thinking early enough, they don't have to demonstrate the effect of a belief. Because remember, not everything we believe and not every thought we have comes into form immediately. And not every thought comes into form. I'm sure we've all had more than one or two thoughts about a boss we didn't like or a friend we didn't agree with, and oh, I wish that person would just. Well, those things don't happen. There is always the opportunity to be in time, to be in the human time, to allow ourselves and allow everything to sort of settle in. When I think of the body in terms of the science of mind, I think of the vastness and what a great opportunity it is to experiment, to be in the playfulness of life, to go out and stretch and run and ride bicycles and climb mountains or go swimming or sailboarding or whatever it is, to be in the glory of the physicalness that we have chosen to experience. Because truthfully, I believe, and what we teach in the science of mind is we are eternal souls. And when we're done with this bodysuit, we're going to leave it here and we're going to go to another plane of existence, another dimension of livingness. And so what that points to for me is we have to be willing and dedicated to living in our bodies as we are here, even beyond any of the conditions. Holmes says it this way on page 102. All is infinite being, and all is eternally becoming. Infinite being is infinite knowingness. As a result of this infinite knowingness, there is an infinite becoming or creation. The infinite knowingness produces what is called involution through the self-contemplation of spirit. As a result of this contemplation, the word of the Bible, creation, is made manifest. This is what we call evolution. Evolution is the process, the way, the time, and the experience that transpires as thought or intelligence or idea or contemplation and passes from abstract being into concrete expression. Consequently, evolution is an effect of intelligence and not the cause of it. Evolution is not creating intelligence. Intelligence is projecting evolution. We do not deny the theory of evolution. We affirm its cause to be intelligent, operating as consciousness and the law. This is so important. The evolution is the process, the way, the time, and the experience that transpires as thought, passing from abstract being into concrete expression. Here's an easy example. I have a thought. I'm thirsty. I have a thought. I'm thirsty. I better get up and head to the kitchen. And I head to the kitchen. And when I get to the kitchen, I recognize by that time my thought is I'm not only thirsty, but I think I'd like a cup of tea. And so along the way, I develop this thought that I'm thirsty, that I'd like a cup of tea. And as I get to the kitchen, I find the teapot and I turn on the water and I fill up the teapot and I put the teapot on the stove. Do I have tea yet? No. Has my thirst left? No. I'm still thirsty and I'm still making tea. It takes the time that it takes for the water to boil and then the water to cool as it steeps in with the tea bag. To me, this is the same process we go through in life. I have an idea. I have a feeling. Or I have the experience of, I don't feel so good. I don't like that. I don't like what's going on in that experience. I want it to be different. And so I turn to prayer, or I turn to my meditations, I turn to my practices. I get up in the morning and I want to create something to serve a project. I need to create a flyer or whatever it may be. There is always time allowing our cause to become effect. If it was instantaneous, it would be, I believe things would get a little messy around the planet. We'd be running into some things that we'd be creating things we don't want to create. Like, and here's the thing, you'll hear religious science, you'll hear people who do thought say, oh, cancel, 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 erase, erase, erase. I said, let's be honest. If you said it, you had to think it first. And if you thought it, it's already loose in the universe. So I'm not real big on cancel, cancel, erase, erase, because that to me feels just a little too cheesy of a cop out. If I say something that's harmful, if I say something that's hurtful, I want to make amends. I want to go back and I want to sit with that person and say, I do apologize. This is not the intention I had. This is not the effect I desired. And the only way we can change the effect is to go back and change our causative thoughts, our beliefs, our belief systems. So there is a little more in here, and Holmes talks about immortality. But what I'd like to do is get to the very last paragraph on page 105 for you. As we look at the many millions of forms, all of different shape and color, and yet know that they all come from one stuff, we are not compelled to accept the fact that there is a specific cause or concrete mental image back of every idea or thing, a divine mental picture. In the subjective world, there must be a correspondent of everything in the objective world. So anything that's in the subjective, there must be something in the objective. And since the subjective world is a receptive or plastic substance, this correspondence can find its initial starting point only in real intelligence. Therefore, intelligence is the ultimate creative agency of the universe. Your intelligence. Now, I know there are people that will immediately say, I'm not that smart. I'm not that. No, that's not true. That is a story we've been telling ourselves. That is a story that others have told us. It's a story we took on because maybe it made us feel safe, or it allowed us to hide from what we were afraid of. The truth is, you are an intelligent being. No question about it. How you practice that, how you nurture your intelligence and your intelligent beingness, well, that's part of what we do in these rooms. That's part of what this philosophy is here to do, is to remind us and lift each of us up to that truth that we are the power, the presence, and the intelligence of the universe. And what we think and what we believe matters. because what we think, what you believe is the causative agent creating form and experience in your life. And that one self existent first cause that is driving the cause that is your causative beliefs, well, as we said earlier, that cause is always taking on form and an experience in order to abandon those forms and experience and take on new forms and experience. I would say yes, Fiona, and back the other way. Our thoughts guide the experience that creates new intelligence, but it is the intelligence that creates the thought that gives us the new matter. This is a both and. It goes both directions. And that's to me, that's I think one of the biggest that was one of the biggest aha learning experiences for me in this philosophy when I came to the realization that everything is a both and. Doesn't matter what it is. Everything is in that realm of allness, of wholeness, of oneness, and it plays in various directions. It whatever the thought process, whatever the game, whatever it is, the cause takes form because of what we put into it. How many times have we heard the old saying by Henry Ford, if you think you're right or wrong, you are? Diego saying we grow to be thankful when things go our way and optimistic when things are challenging. Yes, exactly. Versus, hey, versus the ego of things went my way. Look what I did. Hey, all it's all and and looking down when things are challenging, of looking to defeat when things are challenging. And so many of us have been taught that, right? A challenge, something shows up that we call a challenge or an obstacle, and we get to this idea of, oh, this is going to be hard. This is going to hurt. I'm going to get crushed here. I'm not big enough. I'm not good enough. Blah, blah, blah. No. The deeper truth, the real truth is that there are no obstacles in our life. We just say they are. Every event is benign. It just happens. We make up a story about that event and call it an experience. And then we let that, and then that experience becomes the opportunity. I was having this conversation yesterday. You're driving down the road in a car, tire blows out. That's an event. Not an experience yet. It's just the event. It was a rapid decrease of air pressure in one of the tires of your car. The experience is whether you decide to turn with it or turn against it, whether you slam on the brakes, where your mind goes. The experience is where your mind goes when the event happens. And where your mind goes is going to dictate the opportunity that's in front of you. Now, I'm not a physicist, so I'm not a mathematician. So the tire blows out of the car. I don't have the cognitive time to do the math to figure out whether the turning to the left, turning to the right, or slamming on the brakes is the best mathematical choice for my safety. We go with instinct. We go with our intuition. We go with what we know, what we've learned, what we've trained ourselves to understand as we've gone along the way. So we're at that balance point, folks. I'm looking at the clock and recognizing that, yeah, I got a good another half hour if I go down this road. Or we could open up to some questions as well. So please do remember to share your questions and let us know if you have questions as we go. Comments are welcome too. But so the event happens, we create an experience, and that opens up an opportunity. If my prevailing thought process is that life is good and the universe is working in my favor, and that we're collaborating, the universe and I are collaborating towards good, then the opportunities I see are going to be mostly in that direction. I might see an opportunity to go down a wrong road or get a little aggressive or whatever that might be. However, if my prevailing perspective on life is that life is hard, life sucks, it's tough out there, people, yeah, well then my experience is going to lead to an opportunity in alignment with that belief, and the opportunities before me will have perhaps more dire consequences, or less direct access to the truth that I seek. Everybody still with me? I trust you are. We've got a great conversation going on in the back room, in the background too, folks, in the green room, and a great conversation going on in the front as well. So thank you for being with us. I love being a part of the Science of Mind. I'm going to tell you, we're going to start wrapping this up because it is almost quarter of the hour, and our intention is to be here about 40 to 50 minutes with you and share some of these things. Folks, I don't pretend to have all the answers. I do, however, love to be able to share with you some of what's gotten me to where I am and what it is I do believe about this philosophy and how I'm making it work for me. And that means that there is the same great opportunity for you. You don't need special education. You don't need a ministerial degree. You don't need to go through all. It's fun. It makes it easier. It makes it quicker to learn. And what we need, if anything, is just the experience of life. To be open to the greatness that life is, to recognize that the human body is part of the fun, to recognize that the body, the stuff, the matter in our lives doesn't really matter. The books and the paintings and the t-shirts come and go. And it is our personal causative beliefs that we create our lives. We really do get to create our lives, however you want. The trick is whether we do that consciously or unconsciously. I am a practitioner of one, but certified by none. Exactly. Thank you, Diego. And the next time I see Diego, I'm gonna take some oil and anoint his head so that he's been anointed by someone at least. um, is your subtle body, emotions, memories, etc., affect form also? Yes, Mary Beth. Yes, yes, absolutely, yes. Um, if you break that into it, as we started earlier, memories, they are an experience of something that's already happened. So my memory doesn't cause anything new. It simply reinforms an original causative thought. Our emotions are outpicturings of those causative thoughts. So an event happens, and the causative thought is that, oh my God, I'm in fear. This isn't safe. I shouldn't be here. This isn't good. And we experience an emotional reaction to that causative thought. Trust that helps as well. Folks, we're here every week doing this. We love this book, The Science of Mind and Spirit. We invite you to come back and join us again next week. Now, next week, we're going to be talking about, if you look at, and here's one of our projects, if you look at chapter 6, there is a movement to interpret this book and Holmes's work in a more gender neutral experience. So we're going to say one's relationship to the spiritual universe is next week. And our dear friend and a new speaker on our series from the San Francisco Center for Spiritual Living, Reverend Muwata Ruzuli, will be with us tomorrow, next week. I think if you have yet to experience Reverend Muwata, you're in for a good time. Bring your seatbelt. I'm just going to tell you that. And he's been an inspiration to me for many, many years since I was very first got into this movement, and so I'm incredibly excited that he's going to be with us here next Saturday as well, and then throughout the rest of the year. Our dear producer Tracy's thrown up our donation sign there. If you are a committed member of our community, then you know all about this, and your donations come in month by month. If you'd like to become a committed member and join us in our committed giving program, please head on over to ntmedia.org, click on the donate button. A one-time donation is fabulous. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you'd like to make that a regular monthly donation, then we'll make sure that we get your name on our thank you video, which we'll show in another moment or two here. So I'm out of here for now. My name's Reverend Robert. Again, join us next week for the next chapter, chapter 6, one's relationship to the spiritual universe. It's a big, beefy chapter, and we're going to have a really good time learning more. As the week progresses, please feel free to reach out to us at any time, info@ntmedia.org. And if you have comments or questions or suggestions for this program or any of our broadcast programs, we'd love to hear them. If you'd like to get involved, we'd love to invite you in to be a part of the community as well. I do believe I have covered just about everything I'm supposed to. I'm getting a nod from the green room. Perfect. So I'm going to take hands off and let Dr. Tracy take us out of here. I think we're going to watch our thank you movie real quick and say thank you to all our donors and committed sponsors. And then we'll be back again next week. Until next time, folks. Peace.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome OM Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Heckerland Foundation for your generous technology grant. And Suze Odgen, thank you for your very generous donation. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.